On. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been dealing with cancer since 2021 and doing great. And like the picture in back of me, it's a virtual background of people rowing the boat. I think that's me in there because I'm still around and I'm still heading to wherever. Anyway, I am so happy and so honored today to have a young lady who has an incredible perspective, a very different one, and was really, really intriguing to me. And I'd like to share it with everyone. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Isaacs. Elizabeth, please introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mark. I'm so honored that you value my perspective so much, and I'm so excited to just be able to share it with everyone, on your channel. And so, my background, just briefly, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad's South Indian, and my mom is American. She's primarily of German descent. And so I grew up with two very different perspectives, the Eastern and Western kind of perspective when it comes to health and when it comes to the body. And so Mark and I, had kind of talked briefly. We met through social media, and I was sharing this perspective about some of my relatives that have had cancer in the past. And one of the things I found really intriguing growing up was just the two ways that cancer was viewed from my family in India versus my family here in the US. So yeah, I wanted to share that with everyone because I just think it's really unique, and it's given me a unique perspective on health and the body and things. And cancer's in my family, so I have it on my mom's side, ovarian and uterine cancer. So I have to be checked every year. I have a cousin who had a hysterectomy when she was 30 years old, so really young. So it's definitely prevalent. My mom has had precancerous cells, or like a really early stage, that she had. My aunt had it. She has had a hysterectomy. My grandmother passed away from it. Um, and I believe my great grandmother on my grandfather's side also passed away in her 30s, really young. So
Wow.
it's always been on my mind, and this awareness of it. And so yeah, it's um it's definitely interesting to see how the Western philosophy is very, we all know we're treated with chemotherapy. It's really pushed. The doctors, you're kind of your life is just handed over to you. You're handing over your life to the doctors essentially. And we talked about how it's like they really say what they think is best for you based on their years of experience, their education, things like that. And my family in India, whenever, it's not that there wasn't cancer in the family over there, they had just a very different way of dealing with it, where they would get the diagnosis and they chose to take their own lives into their own hands, where they, were very aware of, I would ask them questions like, are you afraid to die? And they were very much like, no, I'm going to choose when I go. No one's going to tell me. And it was a very matter of fact way. And it was almost kind of common. Whereas over here, it's like you kind of look at the doctors for that, for the doctors to tell you, how long do I have? What do I need to do? What do I, you know, it's just like so very different. And watching my grandmother go through that on my mom's side, the American side, she completely gave over her life to the doctors and did whatever they wanted and whatever they said. And her death was really hard to watch. It was a really hard thing for her to go through. It was very painful for her. She had really bad symptoms, really bad side effects. That's the word I'm looking for. Side effects of the chemo and of the whole, she had surgery and things like that. And versus my Indian family, my aunt, who actually recently passed away, had a very peaceful death. She passed away in her sleep. She had cancer for almost 7 years. She knew it for a long time. She was 80 when she died, and in her early 70s when she was diagnosed. And she just chose to not do anything. She completely took a holistic approach and took holistic measures, and she said, it's my choice when I go. And
What kind of things did she do?
so she took the path of Ayurvedic medicine treatments. So I don't really know exactly what she did because she was over there. I don't know like the specific treatments, but it was definitely along the lines of Ayurvedic. So my dad being in South India, that was where the birthplace of Ayurvedic medicine is. So he
Can,
grew up with
let me
that.
stop you there. Can you explain that and define that for everybody?
Yeah, sure. So Ayurvedic medicine is a holistic practice. It comes from, instead of, treating the symptoms, it comes from diagnosing the root cause. And it also looks at our bodies, our individual makeup, because the principles of Ayurvedic medicine say that we all have bodies that are created differently, and they all need different things. And also, it comes from the premise of needing different things based on where you are in terms of the area in the world. So if you live in a colder climate, your body's going to need certain things based on the type of body you have, type of foods, type of, when you eat, even, what the temperature of the food is also taken into consideration. So she followed this, and there are also several different treatments, that you can get as well, that, different practices. But it's a very holistic approach, and everything you use is all natural, herbs, things like that. It's very much based from the earth, and you're taking things that are from the earth and utilizing things from the earth in order to feed your body, which the premise is our bodies are made of the earth. So we need to use those things that are not chemically modified or genetically modified to kind of, you know, help our bodies heal. So
So do you see, from your perspective, do you see, well, okay, let me ask you another question. If, and I'm not wishing it on you, but if you were to get cancer, how would you approach it?
I think that I would do a completely holistic approach, and I would take it just, and again, this is coming from what I've observed from the Indian side, and kind of the quality of life that they had at the end of their days when they were diagnosed with cancer. It was like, I don't want to say I'm putting my head in the sand. It's not like that, but I'm going to make life changes. It's definitely a time. I believe it's a signal for self reflection, to look at yourself, how you're living your life. What are you thinking? What thoughts are in my head? What am I doing in my day to day life? Like, who am I around? What are the people I'm around? What food am I putting into my body? And what changes can I make that I've been doing up until this point that have led me to this diagnosis, right? And I definitely would look to myself intuitively versus the outside and out an outside person. Not that I wouldn't take, anyone else's perspective. I think that honoring everyone else's perspective and the Western perspective has its benefits as well. It exists for a reason. So I don't ever want to dishonor that. But I would take bits and pieces and feel what resonates within me. And if it resonates within you, or, me, like, I think that it probably means that it's the right thing for you. And so I would take it. And so I think that sometimes, though, um, it's just, I truly believe in listening to your heart and to in your intuition. And I think it's a really hard thing to do, because the intuition doesn't speak to us loudly. The intuition also it speaks to us in a whisper. And they always say it's kind of a whisper, and it's hard to hear. And I think when you start listening to it, and you look at different things, and I think that's almost the way. And that's kind of, going along the basis of Ayurvedic medicine. That's kind of what it is, where it's like you're holding up different things to your body to see how does this feel? Does this resonate? And the practitioners kind of testing, I think probably some people, I think it's a little bit more commonplace now that I've moved to LA. I see people do muscle testing with different herbs and things. And that's an Ayurvedic thing as well. But that also comes from listening to the heart, and what the heart and the body kind of what resonates in the energy field. So that's what I personally would do. But I say that I haven't gone through it. I haven't been, so it could be, but I just intuitively think that's what I would do, because I would want to have a quality of life with um you know with my family, and to be able to enjoy things. So
I think your perspective is so important. I really do. And the fact that you've put so much thought into this already, because of your family, because of the family members around you that have gone through it, has, shown you a different, really, really different perspective that I really think is truly, truly awesome. I really do.
yeah.
But yeah, talk about um, your yoga teacher, and how that fits into the equation as well, with exercise and keeping the body fit. How does that fit into what you see as the picture?
Yeah, so I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I think that I think that moving the body is important. I mean, we all know the benefits of like exercise and healthy eating and things like that. But there's a lot of distractions out there. So I've actually studied health since I was 11 years old. I was a chubby kid, and this is why. So I didn't know. I always wanted to not be chubby. So that was my first thing, because I was getting teased. So that was my first kind of like interest in health. And so I started studying, veganism and just different things. I think you and I talked about being vegan. So I was vegan for, I think, almost 15 years of my life. Um, I got into that, and then I got into exercising, and I was looking up everything. I was always very much like, I don't want to be, chunky and get made fun of. And, like as when I was younger and then moving into my teenage years. And one of the things I found was that there's so many distractions out there. And we all know there's these diets that everyone's like, the keto diet or the paleo diet or whatever. And so going back to what I was saying about listening to your inner intuition and the muscle testing and Ayurvedic medicine, everybody's different. Everybody's so different. And the makeup is so different of each and every one of us. And the foods that you need versus the foods that I need, or medicine that I need versus what you need, are going to vary based on, a multitude of factors. And so I just think through my yoga practice, through meditation really allows you, I think, to kind of tap into that intuition and to feel what you need. That I think helps kind of connect you with that inner voice, that inner intuition voice, to kind of to help you along your path. And so when you meditate and then you know what's right for you, then you're going to go out into the world and most likely do what's right for you, whether it be talking to the right person, taking the right action, eating the right food, exercising in the right way. Um so my practice, in yoga, I started doing that in my late 20s, practicing yoga and meditating. And I think that opened up a lot of things for me as well, in terms of the choices I was making. And then you and I talked too about when you see a family member go through cancer, you kind of learn what, you want to do, or what and even talking to them, having conversations where it's like, is this really what you want? Or you can feel into when somebody's conversing with you, what their energy is, or how, like, are they really saying what they want, especially when you know someone really well, like a family member. And so it was interesting to see with my grandmother. Like I said, she had a really, really hard death, and just talking to her when she would
Well,
say,
let me pause you right there. Can you
yeah.
describe what a really hard death is?
Yes. So she had ovarian cancer, and she was probably, I mean, she was older when she was died. She was 80, and she had a tumor the size of a grapefruit. So she had to have this really invasive surgery to have that removed. So she had her ovaries removed. I believe she had her uterus removed. Like she had everything removed. So that was
Wow.
really hard. Yeah. And so I remember seeing her after the surgery. She was just this lifeless, like could barely move, was just didn't, was looking over at us, barely talk. And she was just laying like this lifeless, entity on this bed. And um she had a lot of complications from that surgery. So she had a intestinal obstruction at one point. She was throwing up her own feces. She was having chemo. She was very sick from that, So on top of the intestinal obstruction, she was sick from the chemo, losing her hair, very weak, very tired. Um, she said she wanted to get the chemo, and she was, she seemingly had this attitude of like, I'm gonna beat this because I want to be there for my grandchildren, and I want to be there for my great grandkids and things like that. But when you would actually talk to her, so going back to what I was saying, when you kind of know, when you talk to someone and you converse with them, and I would ask her, I'd say, Grandma, like, how do you feel? Like, what's the next thing? Or, are you okay? And things like that. She's like, well, this is, what they say I need to do. And well, this is what they say. This is what they say. So it was this downward energy where it was like, I don't want to do this, but other people are telling me I need to do this. So it's overriding what I actually feel I need to do. But she couldn't say that, And in the end, she couldn't, she was too weak to see us. She was too weak to play with the great grandkids when my kids were little at the time. I have two kids. And it actually worked in the opposite way she wanted to, because she had placed so much importance on fighting it, and then had placed so much of the treatment and what she felt was, her body in the hands of other people, essentially. And, some people might listen to this story and think, well, she's 80 years old and, people get cancer. But like I said, looking at my family on the other side of the world, they weren't going through this, I mean, like I said, my aunt was 80 when she passed. She was living a very active life with cancer. She was visiting her daughter in Sweden, her grandchildren, her great grandchildren. She was very active. She got up every day. She meditated. She was doing yoga, like doing some yoga things. She had crows that visited on her flat in her, in India. She talked to me about the conversation. She's like, my friends, the crows are visiting. Like she was just very, very happy and like just very content with her diagnosis. And who knows, I mean, it could have spread all over her body at this point. I mean, I don't even know. She just, her body just gave out on her one day and she passed away in her sleep. So, but we all knew she had it, right? So we just kind of, assumed. So it was very interesting, the two different ways that, that was dealt with, and the utilization of the, going back to yoga and, meditation and things like that. Was just, yeah, really interesting to see, for sure.
You brought up a great point. I've talked to some really knowledgeable people, and they're always talking about meditation and how important it is in the cancer journey, and as well as exercise and yoga and things like that.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts for people going through health issues as far as those things go?
Yeah, I think that just formulating a meditation practice, when you're in a place of going through health issues, a lot of times the mind is going. and there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of overthinking going on because you're in a place of it's traumatic, and you're experiencing trauma. So at that time, what I find with a lot of my students is like that's the best time to kind of do movement, to do asana. So asana is, the postures of yoga, doing the postures and the poses and flowing through, and to learn some of those. And because yoga is a moving, breathing meditation. So you move through the postures with each breath and you connect the movement with the breath. And so when you're very focused on doing that, it almost kind of calms the mind. So personally, and everybody's different, but I find that with a lot of people who've experienced trauma, that tends to be the most beneficial thing to start with. And you come in and then you're able to, once you finish the asana practice, the mind tends to be a little bit more clear to where you can sit in a meditation, even if it's just a minute, and it's like you've done a good job, right? Or even if it's less than a minute or whatever. And then you start kind of slowly building up to that. And meditation can be really intimidating, especially when you're first doing it, because I think that the inclination is to do it correctly, and there's not like a correct way to do it. You have to just, you know, the thoughts are going to come and they're going to go. I mean, our mind is like a radio signal. We're picking up things from all over the place. So the thoughts are going to come in, and I think people get so frustrated sometimes. Like some of my students, they're just like, it's not working. It's it's like not working. It's like there's no off switch. They're going to come, they're going to go, but it's the fact that you are taking, the more you practice it, the more you're going to step into that role of the observer of the thoughts versus the the experiencer of the thoughts, or the thinking that the thoughts are you, because they're not. They're just coming in, they're going, they're being received from whatever energy or whatever happened earlier that day, depending on what you believe. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful practice to stick with it. The mind's a muscle that has to be exercised like anything else. And I think you and I talked about, because you were vegan for a number of years, I think when you had your diagnosis, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, health is just one aspect of it. And um, the meditation kind of helps you exercise that other aspect, the mind as well as the body. Um, and they're all
It
connected.
absolutely. And it's so important. The mind, I learned how powerful the mind is through this cancer journey. Um, the mind, I was so sick that my body was essentially an eyelash above useless. I mean, it took me, I don't know, 10 minutes to walk across a regular sized room. I was so weak. It took me a half an hour to take a shower. You always hear that if you lose a sense, you have other senses that are heightened. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what happened with me, only it was my mind that was heightened. I was just blown away every day because I would sit there and think, I'd look down at my body and, I realized that, because I couldn't touch my toes. And think about it, if you can't touch your toes, you got a lot of difficulties going on. I had to
Yeah.
have, because I was going through chemo at the time, I had to have somebody put lotion on my feet because my feet were dry. And I think during that time, I realized how focused my mind was, because my mind was really, really sharp. I was just blown away by it just felt like it was just like supercharged, for lack of better terms. It was like really, really strong because that was the only thing I had. And as a result, I was starved. I was so hungry for knowledge and learning and information that I'd wake up in the morning, and at my weakest, I was going to bed at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night, waking up at 10 because I was so weak. But during my waking hours, I was hungry for knowledge, and I wanted to learn as much as I could about cancer and about, different experiences people had, and so yeah, that was pretty an amazing part of my journey, was experiencing that uh, enhanced um, mindset. It,
Wow, that's incredible. I've never thought of that before either, I guess. The whereas like your body's kind of at its weakest and then your mind gets super sharp.
yeah.
You have such a unique perspective when it comes to that because you really, really were determined. And that's amazing where your mind just kind of turned on to like absorb everything. And
and,
yeah.
and also every day I would look in the mirror, and I wanted to get better. I accepted who was in that mirror. I was like, okay, I'm not, because I was a workout junkie, before cancer. I was, going to the gym 5 times a week. I was in great shape. My thighs were like solid rocks, and so I had to accept. You're traveling there.
Yeah, sorry. One second. I just have to unlock the door.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. That's my son coming home. I didn't realize the door was locked.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Doors. But anyway,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it was an incredible experience at that time to actually learn more about me and what I was going through, and I was bound to determine every single day to get a little bit better, even though I was like, the way I looked at it, I was at rock bottom. I hit rock bottom. I couldn't go any worse. So if I got just a little bit better every day, and I pushed myself every single day. So even though I had a hard time walking across that room, took me 10 minutes, I did it as much as I could because I knew that would help me to get better, by pushing myself even at that really weakened state. It was important to me to make positive progress every single day.
That's so incredible. And you know what's like so interesting is like that mindset can be used for anything. Like anytime someone's going through like a hard time or hitting rock bottom, since I moved to LA, because I moved to LA 2 years ago, I noticed we were talking about the homeless here because Mark now he's moved to Texas, so he doesn't see as much as, but I see it and I think, wow, I mean, that would be my, one of my rock bottoms. I mean, there's multiple rock bottoms you can hit, but at any time in your life, that mindset is just so powerful to get you out of anything and to even move you up to the next level in life. Like even if you want, that's what I love about this, cancer and the survival and the stories and things like that and like the inspiration because it's just such an amazing thing. Like you said, just 1%. If you do 1% better every day or just a little bit, it's gonna just take you such a long way.
1% at that time would have been a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
point
I was shooting for like decimals.
but
Yeah.
it's an interest, it's like you compounded that into like this beautiful recovery and I just love it. I just love that you're just sharing it with so many people. You're able to like give that to people, that inspiration, and yeah, it's like I wish it's so much about and what you said about your mind too about it becoming so clear whereas like it's a lot, a lot of people like my grandmother, I mean, it broke her. She'd look at her body every day and just get sad, she would just think, or other people, they have a different outlook and to look in the mirror and to just tell yourself, every day I'm going to get better is like people underestimate the power of that. That's your
Right.
thoughts that,
Hmm.
that you're feeding that, you know, and that's like kind of food for your soul that in turn feeds your body into health. So
Yes, absolutely.
amazing.
Elizabeth, I would I always ask this. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but what would be
Yeah.
your final thought for our audience today?
My final thoughts. Oh my gosh. Let's see. My final thought. I would say if you're you know, everything we just talked about was so powerful and I just feel so honored to be able to share it, to be able to talk with you as someone so like-minded, you know, in this I would just say that you know, keep going. I mean, just going to what we were just talking about, just even if it's the a minuscule like the tiniest bit of a percent, a fraction of a percent, just keep telling yourself every day because that compounds. And about um if you think about how save you know if you think about your bank account, it's like your body's a bank account. You're just saving, you know, you have compounded interest. Think about that, you know, and it's work, but it's worth it, you know, it's definitely worth it. And you'll see such great outcomes no matter what area of life. If you're battling cancer, if you're battling something else, or you have something else down in your life, this mindset can just be applied to anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so my second question for you is I always ask this. I mean, I used to talk about it first, and now I've decided to ask all the guests. You know, we live in a very divisive world. There's so much going on, so much negativity. How would Elizabeth make this world a better place for everyone?
I think what I try to do is every day I try to look at myself and um, I try to reflect on on everything, you know, that has brought me up to this point in life. Not everything, but a lot of things. And I always try to look at myself and then look and try to see others, try to see myself within others. And so when I'm going through my day-to-day life, I try to always be in the moment and present with people and to honor every experience that I have, every encounter, like this encounter with me and you, or even just an encounter with a cashier at a store. Because if I don't honor that encounter, I'm not honoring God's plan for me, because God's put me in this right now here with you. God's placed me in a grocery store. God placed me wherever, you know. So if I'm not honoring those people that He's placing me with, then I'm not honoring God. And so I try to think about that. And it's the little things that just matter so much in this world. It's like unbelievably they do. And you don't think they do because it's just the littlest things going to the grocery store, you know, but it's like I just think that just makes such a difference. You don't know what difference you could make in someone's day by just a smile or just being kind or just helping someone out, even holding the door. Like it could make the biggest difference because someone could have lost their family member or be going through something horrible that day, and it could just have brought them up 1,000,000%. You just don't even know. So yeah, I guess
That is
that's
so
what.
well said. That is beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I just love this conversation and your perspective. And it's just been a true blessing. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you, Mark. I feel the same. I'm so honored. Such a
Uh,
blessing to you. I'm really
thank
honored.
thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone out there watching the channel. And I really appreciate all of you. Please like, subscribe, make a comment in the comment section of the video, and have a fantastic week coming up. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.